Greetings of the day, dear viewers. Welcome to Bangla Shikha Classroom, an endeavor of Paschim Bongo Samagro Shikha Mission, Department of Education, Government of West Bengal. I am Dr. Ivy Sarkar, Headmistress, Surampur Girls' High School. Today, I am going to teach you the poem The North Ship by Philip Larkin, an English poet, and this poem is incorporated in the syllabus for class 9 meant for the students of West Bengal Board of Secondary Education. So here you can see a visual. See, this is a ship, this is a sea, and here we'll find a ship that is sailing over the sea. We can presume this as the North Ship. There are questions that why is the poem entitled North Ship? We'll answer all such questions in course of our explanation. Now first, let us know the poet Philip Larkin. Philip Larkin was born in 1922. You can see his image here. He was an English poet and novelist of 20th century. Philip Larkin's first book of poetry was The North Ship. And this North Ship was followed by two novels, Jill, and the second was A Girl in Winter. So these were the two novels that followed his book of poetry, The North Ship. So let us know a bit more about Larkin. Now, Philip Larkin came to prominence in 1955 with the publication of his second collection of poems, The Less Deceived, followed by the Whitsun Weddings and High Windows. He was offered the position of Poet Laureate in 1984, but he declined it or he refused to accept it. Ultimately, Philip Larkin died in December 1985 in a hospital suffering from esophagus cancer. Now, let us come to the poem, The North Ship. Before we proceed with the poem, let us know the gist of the poem, what the poem is about all. What is the poem about? Now, we can find in the poem that the poet or the speaker, he's standing on a shore and he's watching three ships sailing by, or three ships ready for sail. Now in the poem, the poet Philip Larkin describes, or the speaker describes the three ships, their journey. One moves towards east, the second moves towards west, and the third moves towards north. So the poem describes the journey of these three ships, and we will find, we will learn the consequences that they face, the destination that they reach. This is the poem all about. So in a gist, what we can say, the first ship, he sees the first ship in the poem moves towards west. What happens? This ship receives favorable wind and a calm and lifting sea with swelling water. For any journey, for a ship to drive, what it needs for a perfect sail, for a smooth sail, what a ship needs? A ship needs perfect weather condition, that is good wind, favorable wind, that will help the ship to drive and sail smooth. Another is the condition of the waters, the tide, a favorable tide, not a sea storm, not a tempest. So these are the two major factors that a ship needs for a smooth sailing. Are you understanding? Can you get my point? Now imagine a ship will sail over the sea. So what a ship needs? Two things, as I told you. One is the Favorable wind. Wind will have to be favorable so that the sails of the ship can move forward, can move and it can take the ship forward. And second is the sea. The sea should not be turbulent. It should be calm. It should be a flowing sea with a high tide. It should be a lifting sea. So the first ship that the speaker saw that met with favorable wind. The wind was blowing in the direction in which the ship was to move. So wind was favorable. And what was the condition of the sea? The sea was calm. There were good swift waters, swift waves flowing. So what happened? The first ship that moved towards west achieved its goal. That means it reached its destination. You see here the first ship, see, you see the image, it's sailing so smoothly. The ship is sailing and moves towards west, receives favorable wind. And number 2, a calm and lifting sea. That means a swelling sea with swift waves. So naturally, the first ship achieves its goal. It reaches its destination and it reaches a rich country. So the first ship meets with wealth. It gets wealth and it meets with success and prosperity. This is it. Now we are coming to the second ship. What happens to the second ship? The second ship, you see, this is the second ship. The second ship moves towards east. It meets with a turbulent weather, a stormy wind, and the sea is also quaking. Quaking means it is tremulous. It is a shaking. It's tremulous. So the ship struggles and ultimately it is confined. It is trapped. It is unable to move further. And what happens to the third ship? The third ship, you see, here is a third ship. The third ship, you see, it moves towards the north. And what is the weather condition then? Cold, dark, unforgiving sea. So condition of sea is cold and dark. Dark, the sea is dark means the cloud overhead. There are dark clouds overhead and there is no wind. So wind is not favorable. So this is the north ship that moves towards north. This struggles, but it moves on in spite of all hardships. So this is the gist of the poem, The North Ship. So here 3 ships are seen. The first moves towards west. It gets favorable wind and a favorable sea and it meets its destination. The second one is trapped in the stormy wind. And the third one, though it meets with hostile conditions, challenging situation, but it continues its journey. So this is the gist of the poem. Now we'll go a bit detail, and before that we'll also need to know, you have learnt or you have understood the summary of the poem, but we should also know the allegorical meaning, content within this poem. So literal meaning, you have already come to know the literal meaning, what is the poem all about. But you know what is an allegorical poem? Any poem that has a deep inner meaning beneath the surface or literal meaning, that is allegorical. So any poem, any thing that has deep inner meaning beneath the surface meaning or the literal meaning, and that should be associated with our life, then that becomes an allegory. This poem, this particular poem, The North Ship by Philip Larkin, is full of symbolism, is full of allegorical connotations. This is an allegorical poem. It's not only 3 ships, this poem has got many allegorical allegorical hints or implications. So what is an allegorical poem? Let's see. What is an allegorical poem? As I told you, allegorical poem is one that has metaphorical or deeper meaning beneath the literal or surface meaning. You have already learned the surface meaning. So beneath that surface meaning, there will be some deeper or symbolical meaning, and that is allegorical. And we'll also have to remember that an allegory will be able to relate the situation to our lives. So it relies on symbolism that we all can relate to our lives. So it should be somehow connected to our lives. So do you know that what the poem already you have learned the gist, you have heard the gist of the poem, though we have not still now gone into the detail, but you have heard the gist. Can you relate it? Can you understand the allegorical implication? If you cannot, or even if you can, let me just put it before you. See, the three ships, they actually represent the three types of people in this world allegorically. So there are some people who have everything in life, they are very fortunate and they have all the cooperation, all the assistance, and so they easily achieve success. That is like the first ship. Like the second ship, see this allegorical meaning of the second ship. So there are some people in this world who face with various struggles and sufferings and obstacles and hardships, and then they are unable to proceed further. They just give up. They just surrender in the face of problems or adversity. Now there is another category, the third category. They also suffer, they also have problems, they also face many turbulence in life, but they never give up. Their attitude is stubborn, they do not want to give up, they want to reach their destination at any cost. They want to reach their destination with their good intentions. They don't lose their spirit. They have an unyielding spirit. They don't want to give up easily. So these people are represented by the third ship or the north ship. So you can understand how this poem is an allegorical poem, because these three ships, as described in the poem, they represent three different types of people and the different situations that we face in life. Now let us go deep into the poem, and just before it, let us just in a line understand the structure and the form of the poem. The poem has 6 quatrains. What is a quatrain? 4-lined stanza is called a quatrain. 8-line stanza is called octave. 6-line stanza is called sestet. You must have heard this. Similarly, whenever there is a stanza of 4 lines in a poem, that is called a quatrain. So in this poem, there are 6 4-lined stanzas. So 6 quatrains. And the lines you will find, they rhyme alternatively. That means the first line will rhyme with the third, the second line will rhyme with the fourth. So the lines rhyme alternatively. This is the rhyme. Now, without any delay, let us start the poem. The speaker says, the speaker, I saw 3 ships go sailing by over the sea, the lifting sea. So what is the meaning of lifting? Lifting is swelling sea with high tide. So the sea is very favorable. So there is a speaker who is standing on the shore. The speaker is presumably the poet. He is standing on the shore and he had some experience which he has written down or penned down here. What he says? I saw 3 ships. 3 ships were sailing by over the sea. and the sea was very favorable because there was high tide and there were swift waves flowing. So in the visual we can see three ships, you can see three ships, and this is the sea, they are sailing over the sea. And see, let us see the visual. See how calmly and smoothly they are sailing over the sea. And the wind rose in the morning sky. So wind was also favorable. Wind rose in the morning sky. Here morning sky, in this phrase morning, the morning symbolizes new hopes and beginnings. So new hopes is symbolized by morning. And one was rigged for a long journey. So among these three ships, the poet finds that one ship, which was actually the third ship, was rigged. Rigged means equipped for a long journey. Means when we prepare a boat or a ship with all those necessities that are needed for a long journey. When we go for a long tour, we take much more things with us. Similarly, the poet saw that one ship was ready for a long journey. So that ship was ready for a long journey means it was equipped with many more things, maybe rope and all other things necessary. It was ready, that it had foresightedness. It knew that if it might face challenges in its journey, and then to overcome those challenges, it was ready with many more equipments. So, see, rigged means a boat or ship equipped for a long journey. So, one was rigged for a long journey. So, this is the first quatrain. He saw three ships sailing over the sea. The sea water was calm and the wind was favorable. It was the morning time, which symbolizes new hopes and beginnings. And among these three ships, one was prepared for a long journey. It was prepared, it was equipped, it was supplied with all the necessities that indicated that it was ready for a long journey. Now, from this quatrain, what may be the probable questions? If you have understood, you will be able to answer yourself. But still, I have given here some specimen. If a question comes like this, who is the speaker? As I told you, you know who is the speaker? A person on the shore. Who is the poet here is the speaker. What does morning sky symbolize? Yes, very good. I know you must have uttered it. Morning sky symbolizes hope and new beginnings. Which ship was rigged for a long journey? The third or the north ship was rigged for a long journey. Now, what do the ships and the sea represent? This is something very important. What do the ships represent and the sea represent? Now, sea symbolically represents life, and ships represent all human beings who navigate the bouncy road of life, carrying their passions and emotions, hopes and despair, frustrations and setbacks, struggles and hardships. So we, the human beings, we are like the ships. We travel on the sea of life, and in our life's journey, we face many despair, frustrations, setbacks. We need to struggle. We face many hardships. So on that sea of life, we also travel. And we meet with different destinations in our life. So we can change our destination. We can be successful with a spirit. If we have a spirit, a never die hard spirit, if we have that, this is the message that the poem will ultimately give us. So what does the sea symbolize here? Sea symbolizes life, and ships, the human beings who navigate this road of life, the sea of life. So this is something very important, the crux of the poem, a crux that you need to know to understand the poem. Coming to the second quatrain. Now see, So from the shore he saw three ships, and now the first ship. The first ship turned towards the west. I told you this one in the gist itself. The first ship turned towards the west. Over the sea, so the ship was riding naturally over the sea. The running sea. You can see here in the annotation part, running sea is the flowing sea with swift waves. So flowing sea, swift waves. And by the wind was all possessed. Possessed means occupied or brought under control. So wind was controlling the ship. See the picture. Such a smooth sailing is portrayed here. So the ship that moved towards west, that got all the assistance, all the help from the weather and the sea, from the wind. The wind was favorable, the wind was assisting or helping the ship, and the sea was calm, sea was flowing, there were swift waves. So naturally, the ship had a smooth sailing and it went, ultimately landed, and it landed to a rich country. So it received prosperity, it received wealth, it achieved success because the wind and the calm sea waters carried it to a rich country. So now it is clear. So what was the destination of the first ship? The first ship moved smoothly, sailed smoothly, and the wind and the sea helped it, and so it could land to a rich country. So it achieved success. So what is the allegorical meaning of this stanza? So I have already stated, because it's very important, I am repeating it once again. See this ship having a smooth sail, actually indicates what? Indicates that there are people in this world who receive cooperation, assistance, they have all the luck, and they really have a bed full of roses. They have all the chances, all the opportunities, and so it becomes relatively easier for them to achieve success or to reach their goal. So this west ship, actually the ship that moved towards west, represents all those people in this world who can achieve success very easily, have a very smooth sail, because the situation, the circumstance is all in their favor with no hardship at all. So this is what the west ship refers to. So from this stanza, what questions can you prepare? Now see, mention the allegorical implication in the journey of the first ship. This is the main question. The first ship represents those persons who have all the luck, assistance means help, and cooperation from life that are required to fulfill their aspirations. So they can reach their destinations with relative ease. Easily they can reach their destination and they can achieve success. Write down all these questions in your copy. You will not get any other question because probably all the questions have been answered, all the critical questions. Now what else? What ideal conditions did the first ship receive? You know, the first ship received a favorable wind and a calm flowing sea. Calm flowing sea. What was the phrase? Running sea. It received a flowing sea or a running sea for a smooth sailing. The third question, where was the first ship carried to? You know, the first ship was carried to a rich country in the west. It thus had a profitable journey. Now let us move to the third quatrain. So we know the destination of the first ship. Now what happened to the second ship? The second turned towards the east. The second ship moved towards the east. It drove over the sea. It sailed over the sea. You can see the sea here. It sailed over the sea. The quaking sea. Quaking means, it's tremulous, shaking, quivering. Waters were quivering. So quaking sea. And the wind hunted it like a beast to anchor in captivity. So the second ship turned towards the east. Now again, we will have to inspect two things. One is, what was the condition of the wind and what was the condition of the sea? We have already seen the sea was not favorable because the waters were quaking. The waters were tremulous. The waters were turbulent. So the waters were quaking. Sea was not favorable. What about the wind? Oh my goodness. The wind was ferocious. The wind was as ferocious as a beast. So, and the wind you can see here, and the wind hunted it like a beast. So the wind was actually blowing opposite to the direction in which the ship was sailing. So naturally, the wind was not helping the ship to sail. The wind was not assisting the ship, not helping the ship to have a smooth sail. Rather, the wind was obstructing the smooth sailing of the ship. So, and the wind was ferocious. It was speedily blowing from the opposite direction. And it hunted it. It means the ship, the second ship, like a beast. So, like a ferocious beast, just like a ferocious beast hunts down its prey. Similarly, the wind hunted down the ship and trapped it in the mid of the sea, and to anchor in captivity. A hunter also hunts down a beast in a net. But here the wind, which was because the wind was ferocious. The ship wasn't ferocious, the wind was ferocious. So the wind, which was ferocious like a beast, that anchored, that trapped the ship in captivity. Captivity means confinement, imprisonment, imprisoned the ship. The ship had to anchor. You know what is anchor? Anchor is a heavy metal object attached with rope or chain to steady a ship, because it had to anchor, it had to stop there. It could not move against the hostile wind, stormy wind. So the second ship could not go to its destination. The second ship could not reach its destination. The second ship started sailing, but the sea did not favor it. The waters of the sea was tremulous. The waters were tremulous. So the sea was quaking. And what about the wind? What to tell about the wind? The wind was stormy, ferocious, like a beast. Just as a beast hunts down its prey, similarly, the hostile wind hunted down the ship and made it anchor in the sea. Now, how is the image of anchoring ship? Let me see. Now, see some images of anchoring ship. You can see here with a chain, the ship is anchored. This is anchored ship. You can see another image of anchor. This is sea, how the ship is anchored in the mid-sea. So, similarly like this, the second ship also had to anchor because it could not move further. So, what is the allegorical implication of the third quatrain? Now, the second ship represents those people who start their journey and they face many obstacles, many hardships in their life's path. But they do not show that courage or determination, and they give up easily. They surrender easily to the life's problems. Many people who commit suicide, many people, they should not be doing this, but they have weak willpower. That is the reason they surrender easily. But the poet tries to gives us this message that we must not surrender easily and we should be like the third ship, not the second. So the second ship are like those people who cannot handle crisis. They cannot handle problems. They cannot handle turbulence. So when there was turbulence, it remained captive and it gave up. It did not try to move further, but it immediately gave up and anchored at that moment. So this is the destination of the second ship. This is the fate of the second ship. It could not reach its destination. So what are the probable questions? Let's see. Now, from the third quadrant, the probable questions. Number 1, what does the second ship represent? I told you, the second ship represents those people who face a lot of adversities, hardships and troubles in life and eventually give up. Their journey ends in despair and frustration. What did the wind do to the second ship? Did the wind help the second ship? No, the wind was ferocious, and so the virulent wind, that ferocious wind, hunted the second ship like a beast and held it in captivity, imprisoned the second ship. Is there any other question? Let's see. Yes. Explain the comparison in the phrase, wind hunted it like a beast. This is a very, very important phrase. Now, there is a comparison. That means the wind is here compared to a beast. Isn't it? And this comparison is called simile. Now, what is simile? Now, see there in this comparison you have like. So, whenever there is a comparison, see here the wind has been compared to a beast and by using the word like. So, this is a very explicit comparison, clear comparison, and such type of comparison is called simile, S-I-M-I-L-E, simile. Now here, two different things are, what is a simile? Two different things are compared, wind and beast. So wind is compared to a beast, two different things are compared by using words like, such as. Whenever we compare two different things by using words like, such as, that becomes a simile. And when we compare two different things without these words like, as, then that becomes a metaphor. Both are comparisons. You will learn this in detail in class or in the later classes, but for the time being and for the sake of this particular poem, this is enough. I'll explain also with an example. For example, if I say wind is like a beast, that means we are comparing wind to a beast. But if I say wind is a beast, now wind is not a beast. Wind may be ferocious as a beast, but I am not stating it clearly. If I say she is a fox, she is a fox, I am not stating she is like a fox. If I say she is like a fox, that becomes a simile. But if I say she is a fox, that means I mean she might be as cunning as a fox, or she might be as clever as a fox. Whatever it is not stated clearly. So in this case, it is metaphor. So when we make a comparison and if the comparison is explained clearly by using like, as, such, that is simile. But when a comparison is made between two different things, but it is an indirect comparison, there is no words like, as, such, that becomes a metaphor. So if I say she is like a fox, that is a simile. But if I say she is a fox, that is a metaphor. So here in this particular poem, wind hunted it like a beast. So here wind has been compared to a beast and there is a word like. So this is an example of simile, S-I-M-I-L-E. Now what will be the answer? The wilderness of the violent or the virulent wind trying to engulf the second ship has been compared to a ferocious beast. So the wind, the wilderness of the wind, the stormy wind, the virulent wind, which was trying to captivate the second ship, that is compared to a ferocious beast hunting down its prey. And this is an instance. This is an instance means this is an example of simile. I have already explained you why this is a simile. Okay. So now watch part 2 of the explanation for the rest of the poem, and there in the second part of the explanation of the North Ship by Philip Larkin, I shall be explaining you the 4th, 5th and 6th quatrain along with all the important question and answers, and we will also discuss why the poem is entitled The North Ship. There is West Ship, there is East Ship, so why is the poem entitled The North Ship and what is the central message that the poem gives us? Till then, goodbye. Thank you for watching.